And we speak now to Bongani Mahlangu, who is a national executive member of the South Africa Union of Students. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mahlangu. And I want to just now zero in on the figures. So you, as a student body, say when you began the year, 8,142 students were at risk of financial exclusion, but that figure now stands at 6,332 who are at risk of financial exclusion. What has narrowed the gap slightly? And are you confident that those who do qualify for these for the financial aid will indeed get it?
Good day. Thanks for inviting the South African Union of Students. I think I have to clear one issue first, is that as the South African Union of Students, we speak for all students in the university space, in the university sector. So I believe the 8,000 that has been reduced to a smaller number is something that is specific to the University of the Witwatersrand. And I think the SRC there would be better equipped with the information in order to respond to that.
Okay.
So our
what is the national
issue
picture
as the
then?
South African...
What is the national
What
picture?
is?
The national picture. You say you don't want to zero it down to Wits University. You want to speak from a national perspective. Then tell us what the national perspective is in terms of the figures. How many students in total are at risk of financial exclusion?
So we do not have an aggregate figure now, because that would have to be filtered in by the respective SRCs. And as you would know, that some institutions as we speak have not even concluded the 2020 academic year. And some institutions as we speak have extended the registration period for the 2021 academic year. And some are in between registering and conclusion. But what we do know at this moment is that there are issues, and those issues are that there has not been an amount or a budget allocated to the Department of Higher Education as we speak. That comes from your budget speech that was tabled by the minister in the yesterday month. And what we do know as well is that there were some reductions made from the Department of Higher Education and Training from the mid-term budget policy statement that was made last year in October, which saw about 9 billion rands being wiped off NSFAS, and that is the money now that is needed in order to fund students that will be entering for the first time this year and ensure that they can register in time and secure their spaces, and that is not happening. And NSFAS is not giving any clear indication as to what is happening, besides the fact that they are still in engagement, deriving a new policy, which is the same narrative that is pushed by the Department of Higher Education. But what we do know as well as the South African Union of Students is that there's fiscal consolidation that is taking place by government. To put it mildly, it's austerity measures. And one of their target is to cut spending on higher education in South Africa. And that is why we're experiencing the problems we're experiencing now, which are unfortunate.
From where you sit as an organization, what do you think is the picture that's confronting you now? NSFAS says funders have dried up, so they face that challenge. But we also know that the number of students whose caregivers, or at least guardians, who would have been able to afford, that can't afford, has grown. Just how bad is this picture from the perspective of how many students are going to be left behind from higher education in this academic year?
It's bad, because you'd think that a government should be taking education serious, but with fiscal consolidation, education is being cut. So that is very unfortunate. And as I've said before, the cut doesn't begin in 2021. It actually began in October of last year when the midterm budget policy statement was tabled. But what we do know as well is that the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, signed a performance agreement, and intervention 3 of the performance agreement that he signed simply states that ensure eligible students receive funding through NSFAS bursaries, through guidelines, policy, legislative review, effective oversight of NSFAS by DHED, and improve management. What we do know as well from that performance agreement that he signed is that he must ensure that a minimum of 450,000 students are put on the NSFAS funding scheme, and that is just for university education only. So now, as much as nothing is being said, as much as we are hearing stories here and there, and there's no concrete story, there's no concrete narrative, simply because the people that are running NSFAS, running THEAD, don't know exactly what they are doing. But we do know that the minister signed this, and he has to ensure that he performs accordingly. So he has to ensure that all eligible students get the funding this year, because failure for him to do so, that would mean he would have
I
failed
need to
to
ask one
perform in
final
accordance.
question
And failure
because we
for him
are
to
running
perform
out
in
of
accordance
time.
simply means he has to be moved from the position because he's
Okay.
incapable of
I
performing
need to
as
ask
a
this question.
minister
We've run
in
out of
higher education,
time.
probably as a minister in
What
other
does
department as well.
What does it mean in practical terms, as briefly as you can, please? If you don't have money, can you register at all, or does it mean you have to go home and you possibly don't know for how long?
So basically what happens in our universities in South Africa, led by our multimillionaire vice chancellors, is that if you do not have money to pay for your registration, you are not allowed to register. If you have outstanding debt, that would have been accumulated from previous academic years, you will not be allowed to register. Sometimes there are concessions that are being made through a one-on-one negotiations with students, but in the main, in general terms, you will just not be allowed to register. You will have to go home with your dreams and try to see what you do in another space or in another year. So that's what happens each and every year, because if you have been following, each and every year around registration time, we are in this position where we are fighting the Department of Higher Education, we are fighting universities to say, what can you do to assist students? We have seen one university, the UWC, of which we applaud, the University of the Western Cape, that has allowed for all students whom owe the university to register with the university through certain concessions that they have been made. And we believe that many more universities can do that, because we do know, even though the financial reports and integrated reports of universities for academic year 2020 have not been published, will probably be published around midterm of the year. But universities made a lot of savings last year, because
All right,
the
thank you very
greater
much.
part of last
Bongani
year,
Mahlangu
students were at home.
is a national executive member of the South Africa Union of Students.